Well, let's get started. Nothing more exciting than family law and taxes, right? Woo! Yes. Lauren, what are the changes, and why do we care?
So the current law, under the current law, spousal support is taxable to the recipient and as income, and it's an above-the-line deduction for the payor. So it's a good deduction for the individual that's paying spousal support. But commencing January 1st, 2019, new agreements will be subject to the new tax law, which indicates that the supporters will no longer be taxable to the recipient and no longer be deductible to the payor.
So that was complicated. Let's say that one more time, because that's pretty crucial stuff that we're going through. Give me that one more time.
So if, for example, the husband is paying spousal support, right now he can claim the spousal support as an above-the-line deduction on his tax returns. And the wife, if she's the one receiving the spousal support, would have to claim that as income on her tax returns and pay the taxes related to that support. But starting January 1st, 2019, that law is changing for new agreements. So if an agreement hasn't been entered and it's entered after January 1st, 2019 moving forward, then that law would change and it would no longer be deductible.
Got it. So do you see a lot of people rushing to get this completed? I mean, it seems like it's pay one, pay the other, right?
Right. So there has been a lot of increase in requests for us to try to rush and get orders completed.
Just a few.
Just a few.
But at this point, honestly, if there isn't an agreement already or close to an agreement, it's unlikely, I think, that it'll be entered by the end of the year. But that's okay. We'll just tax affect that issue and ensure that moving forward we address the offset now, and so it will look. So the parties will need to negotiate that. So starting January 1st, we'll need to go ahead and ensure that we take that into consideration. But it's not something that we can't resolve still. So I think it'll be fine. It's just going to take some adjusting for everyone.
We're talking with Lauren Schmidt. She's a family law attorney. Their website is msmfamilylaw.com. msmfamilylaw.com. So I'm sure in 5 years from now, this will be no longer of any importance. We'll just look back and say that's how it is. But right now, we're going through the transition. It's kind of become a topic. So what does it mean for future in terms of existing orders? Like if you already have things set in place, existing orders?
So there's still discussions regarding the effect of the modifications after 2019 and to the extent to which you can agree to grandfather in the prior order that you are modifying. So unfortunately there's no Internal Revenue Service regulation or tax court rulings on that issue yet. But, and I'll let Karen maybe chime in as well, but it's my understanding that as long as you have an order in effect prior to 2019, that if you later modify that order, that you could choose to use the prior tax rule or the current tax rule.
You get to choose which tax rule you
I'll
use.
let Karen defer. I'll defer to Karen on that one.
And Ryan, you said something interesting. You said, in 5 years we won't worry about this. 5 years ago, I think Lauren and I would have both told you we would have no idea they were going to change the tax laws on spousal support.
Right.
So when it came down and we were getting these phone calls from all these agreements we negotiated, we were like, okay, we'll just have to, see what's going on. And, and I think Lauren and I will both tell you, call an accountant.
Yeah, definitely make sure you have an accountant on board.
Make sure you have a good accountant, because we don't give tax advice. We can't. And we just don't know what's going to happen.
Right. And we still, as we sit here today, don't know for sure how everything is going to be interpreted. So that's why it is important to consult with your tax preparer, consult with your family law attorney if you're kind of in transition, starting your divorce, already have an order, think about modifying it. I mean, if you think about the effects of it, if somebody is, let's say it's just as an example, the husband is paying the ex-wife $5,000 a month, well, the ex-wife received that money and had to pay taxes on it with the current law, and then the ex-husband got to deduct that. So he's in a higher tax bracket, so it's a really good benefit for him. And if she's not working, earning her own income, then she knows I get $5,000 a month and I pay taxes on that, but I pay it at a lower tax bracket. And I know how much and I know how much I have to spend every month. After 1/1 of 19, it's no longer deductible. So whatever the payor spouse has to pay, it's just that amount. And the good thing is whoever's receiving it doesn't have to worry about paying taxes out of what they receive. So it changes everything. It's going to change the dynamics of the mediated cases that we try to resolve immensely. And we don't even know yet because it hasn't happened yet. But being a CPA that's involved in helping people to settle their cases, when there is a spousal support order, we always say to them, as you know, you always say, yeah, but it's deductible. So it seems like a lot of money, but you get it deducted on your taxes. So when that gets taken away, we'll have to see. It's just, I think it's going to be a little bit more difficult.
And a lot of agreements, Lauren will tell you also that we negotiate a lot of agreements based upon that deductibility purposely.
Yes. Because that makes sense to certain people. The whole notion of having to pay support sometimes is a difficult one to swallow, but if you get a tax deduction for it, then it just seems easier to swallow. But so we'll have to see how it plays out next year.
Right, I can see you guys are making negotiations based on effective income and guessing, I shouldn't say guessing, Karen's involved, so it's not a guess, but making predictions on what the effective income will be after taxes, and that burden is shifted a little bit there. Well, I think we've already touched on this, but just one more time. So what does it mean for future divorces that are resolved after the new year?
So I think, practically speaking, the amount of spousal support would be lower than what it would have been under the prior tax law, just because, again, we're not considering the tax impact the same way that we would. And so we'll have to tax effect and take that into consideration and make sure that the numbers are adjusted. So just from a practical perspective, if in the 2018 agreement, husband was paying $5,000, now if we're going to modify it and it's going to be under the new tax laws, it's going to be less than that because he's not going to get that benefit, that tax break there.
Got it. So it seems in the past, or up till the end of the year, the IRS was potentially taxing the person making lesser money and being in a lesser tax bracket. Now that has shifted, and they are now taxing the person theoretically that's in a higher tax bracket. Is that really the net effect? IRS makes more money?
I guess it depends on which side I'm on in that part. If I'm representing the person that's paying the spousal support, I would argue that that the tax effect should be considered at the higher tax bracket because that's the actual tax that's occurring.
Of course.
Versus if you shift it to the person that's receiving the spousal support, you're kind of creating a fictitious amount because they're not actually paying taxes on it anymore. And so I would argue, if I'm the payor, that no, we should use my higher tax bracket when we're figuring out what that effect means and calculating the amount of support versus shifting it to the person that's not actually paying it. And then if I'm representing the other side, I would shift my argument.
Well, and Ryan, you should know that core